Good evening and welcome to another edition of Angles and Attitude. Tonight episode is number 40, and how ironic, we're going to call this one the Gale Sayers episode of Angles and Attitude. And tonight I have with me Fred Mitchell, the award-winning sports writer and columnist of the Chicago Tribune. You are the author of 12 books and also the namesake for the Fred Mitchell Award, which goes to the top place kicker in over 750 colleges in America. The award handed out through the National Football League is based on kicking performance and community service. Fred, I have to tell you, I don't know where to start. I almost want to go backwards to forwards because, my friend, this is an amazing resume, and thank you for coming on. And how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. Thanks, John. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate your interest.
No problem. Fred, I got to ask you, the football career, if we can start with that, how does that, were you always in sports? Because I'm going to hit you with some things that I admired about you, because I think you could have played any sport when I saw some videos of you on YouTube. How does the football thing start? Do you remember your first love for the football?
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, I had a tremendous interest in almost all sports growing up. That had a lot to do with my father's passion for sports, particularly in his case, baseball, I would say, and football. And as far as the kicking is concerned, when I was about 7 years old, my father bought me a football and a tee for Christmas, and I proceeded to go out in the backyard and start kicking. I started out kicking over a telephone wire in the alley into a vacant lot behind our house. I kicked it back and forth, and eventually got pretty good and pretty confident about doing that, and really enjoyed it. And it wasn't until I was a sophomore in high school, when I was 14 years old, I got a double promotion from the 4th to the 6th grade. So I was younger than most of my classmates. But anyway, when I was 14 and a sophomore in high school, and real skinny, probably about 6 foot, 150 pounds. And right before a physical education class outside, I was kicking a football. I had a friend of mine who was holding for me right around second base, and I was kicking the ball over a high fence in right field.
Wow.
Probably at least 45 yards. So our physical education teacher, who was also the head football coach, Bob Stearns, walks out and sees me doing this, and basically says, "You're on the varsity right away."
Wow. And this was your sophomore year there?
Sophomore year, 14 years old, and he gave me my first opportunity. And it was more noteworthy, I think, then, because kicking specialists in high school back in the 60s were virtually non-existent. So I was a pioneer, I guess you would say, in that regard.
Yeah, because the game at that time, yeah, you really had to be that specialist at that time for that type of game, right? I mean, and we're talking here mid 60s, 65 to 68.
Yeah, actually, yeah, early 60s for high school. I graduated in 65, so I played in 62, 63, 64 in high school. So yeah, this was a unique setup. And my coach, Bob Stearns, who had played at the University of Iowa and had been a star, and assistant coach, Earl Smith, that I'm still close to now, also starred at the University of Iowa. And they saw something in me and gave me an opportunity to do something unique. And forever appreciate.
I read something where Jan Stenerud, of course, who was with, I think, the Kansas City Chiefs when I was growing up, he had the single mark, I think, when he was at Montana. Was your demeanor, even though you went to the small college, did you think, well, one day even though I know you have this career, of course, in journalism, did you ever think, hey, I could probably make a pro team? Because, like you said, having a kicker then was just really, it was different.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it was definitely, at least in the back of my mind, that that was a possibility. And Jan Stinnerud, you mentioned, was a contemporary of mine who started Montana State and was one of the first soccer style kickers. I was a straight on square toe shoe kicker.
Yeah.
They don't exist anymore. But I remember Jan Stinnerud. I had a friend who was going to Montana State at the time and saying, hey, you won't believe this soccer style kicker. And he's really tremendous. And obviously, he like you said, he set the single season record for kick scoring at what we would call now non-FBS schools, non-Division I.
Right.
So I set the record for a career kick scoring at that level. So I did feel that way, and I know that the guy whose record I broke had a brief NFL showing, and the guy who broke my record, Skip Butler, kicked for 7 years in the NFL was mainly with Houston Oilers. So yeah, that was a thought. I'm sure that with the NFL turning exclusively to soccer style kickers, my career wouldn't have lasted very long if I had that opportunity. But yeah, I certainly thought about it.
Yeah, we had a kicker here in Chicago. I don't know if you remember it. I'm sure you're going to remember him. After Mac Percival, it was a guy by the name of Merle Roeder. He was a soccer style kicker. Yeah. He could launch them, but a lot of times they went on Waveland Avenue.
Yeah, the kickers today are just so incredible, incredibly skilled. The technology and the kicking camps and so many other factors contribute to the improvement in that position. There's just so much greater attention paid to it. So we're seeing the results of that.
And I noticed, Fred, I mean, was this after Wittenberg you played for like the Columbus Bucks and the Chicago Heights Broncos? Was that after Wittenberg, just playing semi-pro ball?
Exactly, yeah. And, a lot of younger people are not aware of the quality of play for those semi-pro teams. Some people used to call them sandlot teams. But back in the 60s and early 70s, you didn't have Arena Football League, you didn't have USFL, you didn't have any of these other variations. So if you did not play in the NFL, or you didn't go to Canada, you didn't have any other options if you wanted to continue playing. And as an example, the Columbus Bucks that I played for briefly had, I think it was eight players on their roster from Ohio State's 1968 National Championship team.
Wow.
Coached by Woody Hayes. So that gives you an idea of the quality of play that you had. And, back then, a lot of future NFL stars started out. Like Johnny Unitas comes to mind immediately. And there's many others who played at the so-called, minor league level, semi-pro level. So, I was proud to have that opportunity.
Oh, for sure. And I'm glad you brought it up that way because, now when you look at, like, say, something like a semi-pro, the modern millennial will say, oh, he's just playing semi-pro. But in your era, I mean, that was a big thing to be doing that.
Yes, it was. And there had quality coaches, a lot of, former NFL players who maybe get cut and want to continue playing and then perhaps get signed again. I think Bob Kuchenberg comes to mind. A lot of guys just needed an opportunity to stay in shape, keep playing, wait for the right opportunity. And that's what that represented.
Fred, so during this time, of course, you were teaching, studying journalism and that. How does you make this move now to Chi-Town, to Chicago?
Yeah, so right out of Wittenberg, my college career there, I immediately started teaching English, and coaching football and track and field at Grove City High School in Ohio, suburban Columbus. And I did that for 5 years, had a tremendous experience, made some lifelong connections, coached 2 or 3 guys who played in the NFL. And after 5 years, I decided I wanted to do something different, and it wasn't quite sure. So I came up to Chicago, and my father had a colleague of his named Bill Lowry, who had a television show in Chicago called Opportunity Line. He's on CBS locally in Chicago, where he kind of lined up jobs.
Got you.
That sort of thing. So Bill Lowry set up some interviews for me at places like Northern Trust Bank, Quaker Oats Company, a couple other places. And I got some offers. But then I came back to his office and he said, "Oh, you don't seem all that excited about this. What is it that you're looking for?" And I kind of hummed and hawed and said, "Well, I don't think it's a possibility, but I'd really like to be a sports writer." I was a sports editor of my school paper in college, as well as in high school. I was the editor-in-chief in high school. And, kind of in the back of my mind,
Right.
that would be a tremendous opportunity. So he said, "Well, wait a minute." He said, "Let me make a phone call." And he happened to know someone, an executive at the Tribune. And it just so happened that they had an opening for a copy editor on the sports desk at the Chicago Tribune. So a copy editor is not a writer, but it's the person who has an important responsibility to write the headlines, read the copy, fact check for grammar, edit it.
A lot of intricate work.
Yes, basically the last person who looks at the story before it goes to print.
Right.
So I said, my eyes brightened and my expression brightened. I said, "Yeah, I would love to do that. Sounds great." And so that got my foot in the door. And I first couple of years learned the business professionally. A lot of people in that field just talk about how intoxicating it is to be in a newsroom, to be there when news develops, to be the first ones to find out. So I got caught up in that, enjoyed that, and initially got an opportunity to write covering high school sports. That was my first assignment, which is a big deal in Chicago when you think about how many millions of people there are, not just within the city, but in all the suburbs. So I got an opportunity to cover people like the original Isaiah Thomas.
Sure, Westchester.
Yeah, and Doc Rivers and Terry Cummings, all these future NBA and NFL players when they were in high school, wrote feature stories, game stories, etc. And that was a tremendous experience. And then I got the opportunity to become the Chicago Bulls beat writer in the early '80s, right before Michael Jordan. So,
yes.
People like Artis Gilmore and Reggie Theus.
Gilmore, sure, in the mid-'70s.
Dave Greenwood, all these guys. Did that for a few years. Gary Sloan, when he first started his coaching career. And then I covered, I think it would have been '83, I covered the NBA final with the Lakers and the 76ers, traveling cross country. And I come back to the office and the sports editor says that, good news and bad news. Good news is I want you to start covering the Cubs. And bad news is I want you to postpone your 4 weeks vacation you had planned.
Oh, geez. Okay, great. Yeah.
And join the Cubs in San Diego for their series. And,
well, that was the '84 run, correct?
That was the end of that was the second
the
half.
'84 team with Sandberg and Say and all those guys. Yeah.
That was the second half of the '83 season.
Oh, '83 season.
Yeah, and so that was Lee Elia was the
Lee Elia era. Yeah, we won't go there, Fred.
Yeah. But so I immediately, when you pick up a team in the middle of the season, you're just getting to know people and the
Sure.
et cetera. And I think the Cubs were like 3 or 3.5 games out of first place about that time.
Right.
And immediately they started to tank. And I had to start writing stories about Lee Eliot's job being in jeopardy. And indeed, he was fired. And
You're Fred. You are the actually the first African American journalist hired by the Tribune, and that's of course in '74. I know we went a little forward, and of course you're covering, like you said, the Bears, the Bulls, and the Cubs. And I got to tell you, Fred, you know that's my era because you know growing up, I was a teenager, and of course, you know. You probably saw the tail end of a really good Bulls team when they had Walker, Love, Storman, Norman, Jerry, and of course Boerwinkle and Clifford Ray. Right. And then of course, you know, you had those Cub teams that were kind of on the slide because now Ernie had retired, Billy Williams was at the got traded to Oakland, and then of course, you know, we had those Bear teams where I have to ask you this question. This might seem funny, but after listening to you tonight, did the Bears ever call you to do some field goals? Because we could have used you.
I thought about that, and my father would always ask me that question. You know, do they know that you were a kicker in college? And it wasn't something I brought up to Mike Ditka until maybe later in my tenure of covering.
Well, I mean, and I have to tell you, I mean, you was there any one of the three? I mean, you were. I mean, how, because you're covering all three, you went from season to season to season, basically, you know, spring to fall, and then the Bulls becoming the winter. And we'll talk about the Blackhawks later because that's my sport. But I mean, Fred, was it like 12-hour days, 5 days a week?
Yes. I mean, it's a long, grueling task, shall we say.
Sure.
And particularly, baseball is, I won't call it a grind, but it's certainly a daily challenge and a way of life. And,
sure.
And I always say that if you don't love the game of baseball, it would be pretty much unbearable to deal with. But I love baseball and enjoyed the camaraderie of not only the players, but also my media colleagues that you see every day and that you travel all over the country with. And it's the pace and the rhythm of the game is so much different than football. And I really noticed that when I was switched from the Cubs beat to the Bears beat in 1988. I realized that in baseball, you almost always have a game to write about. Whereas in football, with one game a week, you know, you spend a day or two after a game picking apart what happened on that Sunday. Then the rest of the week, you're looking forward to previewing the upcoming game, but there aren't as many games to deal with. And in football, it's more, I don't want to say serious, but each game has so much impact. Whereas in baseball, you lose 3 games in Philadelphia, not that big a deal. You know, you come back home and win a couple games. So it's a different pace. But it's a long day, and that has not changed. A lot of people don't realize, particularly baseball, that if you are a beat writer, you are expected to be at the ballpark at least 4 hours before game time.
Wow.
So if the game starts at Wrigley Field at 1:20, you should be there no later than 9 o'clock in the morning, and maybe a little bit earlier, to get set up in the press box, go down to the clubhouse. There's a lot of standing around, but you have to be there in case someone is ready to talk, or if a player gets traded or brought up from the minors, all sorts of possibilities. And then you also talk to the manager a couple hours before game time, usually in the dugout. And so you're, especially in recent years, you're tweeting, you're blogging, you're writing notes, and then the game itself in baseball, as you know, it could be 2.5 hours, it could be 4.5 hours.
Sure.
Or it could have rain delays or extra innings. And then after the game, of course, you go back to the clubhouse, interview people, come back to your press box,
Wow.
transcribe what you've recorded on your tape recorder, and write the story or 2 or 3. So you do that, and then you start right up the next day. And whereas players may have a so-called off day to travel, you still have to write a story for
Sure.
the newspaper.
Fred, before I ask you this next question, I just want to make sure you are hearing me clearly. I know sometimes I don't know if it's your volume might be going a little bit low, but just in case,
I can hear you fine. Sure.
You're great. Fred, I have to tell you, so you were doing the road and of course the home if you were covering the Bulls, the Bears, the Cubs. So yeah, I mean, I can imagine the chaotic and I learned something today. I didn't know you had to be there that early, because if you're not there that early, now you could look like the guy that didn't know what was going on, correct?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, there was a tremendous competition between the beat writer from the Tribune and the beat writer from the Sun-Times or the Daily Herald, the papers that covered on a regular basis. And so yeah, you didn't want to get scooped. Eventually that happens where you might get scooped, or you hopefully scoop your opponent. That's part of the game. And I was fortunate and made a point of trying to have a good, cordial, professional relationship with my colleagues who, had the same responsibility that I have, to break stories. Because you could be really miserable.
Oh, sure.
I've known incidents where, people, writers wouldn't talk to each other for an entire season because they were mad because the other guy or woman got a story that they didn't have. So that makes your life miserable. So I always pride myself in that. I kept a friendly, professional relationship, and if they got me, then I say good story.
Sure.
And if I got them, hopefully they say the same thing.
And I can see that in your demeanor, even though, we've never met one-on-one, but I can see it in your demeanor and how respected you were in the city all these years. Well, I want to switch gears a little bit, but it's in the same gear, if this makes sense to you. So we're talking, here you're doing all this, the Bears, the Bulls and the Cubs, but for some reason, and I want you to know, I'm going to hold them up. I have 4 of them. We have Where Have You Gone? We have, of course, our episode tonight, Mr. Sayers, the great Gale Sayers, and we'll talk about him because we'll never see a runner like that again. I hope you don't disagree with me. And then, of course, we got the guy from Alabama, Sweet Swinging Billy, who I loved, who played left field like no other. And I still say to this day, Mr. Williams, even though he didn't have to move much, makes the greatest catch in the world when he saves a no-hitter for Mr. Ken Holtzman and he nestles himself into the well in Wrigley Field. How did you have time is the question. I have 3, but not only 3 here, I have the Loyola book, because being an ex-Rambler, how were you able to write 12, my dear friend, and do it to perfection? How does this start for you?
Thank you. Yeah, well, my first book was with Ryan Sandberg called Rhino back in 1985. Where he asked me, this was right after he won the National League MVP award, and I covered the Cubs. And that was what we referred to as a quickie book, in that the publisher wanted to take advantage of the fact that the Cubs had won the division and we're in the playoffs and that sort of thing. So that was the first effort, and then I think. I like to think that my relationship and the trust that I built up among some of these athletes that I work with was a big factor in them asking me to write books with them. So in the case of Billy Williams, Gale Sayers, Tiger and Earl Woods, the book called
Yes.
Playing Through.
Playing Through, yes.
Yeah. So most of these cases, they asked me to do the work. Now, how did I have the time to do it? I don't know how I did it, because I did not take any time off from my Tribune responsibilities to do these. You know, a lot of people would say, a lot of journalists would say, well, I'm going to take a year off or 6 months off to work on a book project. And I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. I thought my first responsibility was with the Tribune. So, excuse me, I remember especially doing the book Playing Through with Tiger and Earl Woods, mainly with Earl, that I was at that time I was writing a 5-day-a-week column called Around Town. So that was my first responsibility. And then when I would get home at night, I would call Earl Woods at 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. Chicago time.
And this is Tiger's father. Excuse me. Yes.
Yes, the late Earl Woods. And I'd call him at 9 my time and 7 his time out in California. And we would talk for exactly 2 hours. And I would record the conversation and afterwards transcribe what he said. And in addition to that, I traveled out to the house in Cypress, California, where Tiger grew up, where Earl was living at the time. Interviewed him there. Went to 2 or 3 golf tournaments in Miami, in New York, and in Chicago, and also the Ryder Cup, which was in Spain. So, yes, that I just burned the midnight oil writing that,
and of course, this was in addition to working your regular job. So, yeah. I mean, this is what people have to understand. That's why I brought it up. I mean, when I saw the dates of all these books, I'm like, wait a minute, this man's still working. How's he doing all this? You know, it's just incredible. I have to ask you, I loved Where Have You Gone, the Cub book, because you not only, you go back to people like Vance Law and Pete Lecoq in the book, that kind of like the average baseball player. And I hope Vance and Peter are not talking to me, listening to me right now. But I mean, that's what I loved about you. Where have they gone? And a lot of times I'll even think like, what happened to Andy Thornton? What happened? That's how I think. And I just was like, wow, Fred, you really brought out like the significance of these people. But were you approached, like for instance, did Williams and let's talk about Gail first. Did Gail approach you or did you approach Gail?
Yeah, no, Gail approached me, and it was, through the publisher that wanted to do the book with him. And I don't know if they recommended me or whatever, but Gail and I knew each other before that. So it was very comfortable for me to work with him and spend a lot of time at his residence. And we got to become really, really good friends, and went to lunch a lot. And went to one thing that I'll never forget was I got a writing award, must have been 2010, and they surprised me by having Gail show up and present me with the award instead of
Oh wow!
So that was a terrific treat to be presented an award from Gail and have him say some nice things about it. So I'll never forget that.
And Fred, that was a total surprise to you. You didn't even know he was going to be there.
No, I did not. And when I saw him there, I certainly didn't think he was going to be presenting me for the award. That was great.
Off the field, in regards to Gail Sayers, was he easy to deal with? I mean, here's this, iconic athlete in the city. I mean, here's this man, I think, who doesn't have that knee injury. I think this man would have had 2,000 yards. He could cut, he could move, he could. I mean, how was he outside of the game?
Yeah, he was. He was very gracious, uh, and proud, but humble at the same time. He always talked about having God-given talents. There's nothing he did in particular to earn all this. He just had this innate ability and peripheral vision and sort of sensing where the tacklers were trying to attack him from. And so he had a good understanding and perspective on who he was and what he accomplished. And the main theme, I thought, of the book that we worked on together was him saying to the younger athletes, prepare to quit. In other words, he only played 68 games, right? Because of the injury. And yet he left an indelible mark on everyone, and the youngest player ever to be inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame at the age of 34. So that does wonders. But he noted that the average NFL player plays maybe 3.5 years, I think it is. And even if you have a 10, 15-year career, you're still going to have, half your life ahead of you. So he, back when he played, they didn't make anywhere close to the kind of money players make now. He had a contract for $25,000 his rookie year. And his rookie year, he scored a rookie record 22 touchdowns in just 14 games, a record that stands today, even though they played 16 games. So at the end of his rookie year, George House called him in, gave him a $10,000 bonus.
Wow. Okay. Well, and we know George was kind of tight with the wallet, of course.
Right.
Knowing that.
So he was grateful for that. But he truly played for the love of the game. He talked about, playing in the Pro Bowl. I think the winners of the Pro Bowl got something like $500. But he said it was important to them back then to play well and be good.
The relationship Gail had, is it, there was that movie with Billy D. Williams that we all saw. The relationship with Piccolo, is it real to life? Is it what it really was, Fred?
Yeah, that's what he told me. Yeah, it was genuine. His relationship, I don't think he thought it was a big deal at that time that they had become the first interracial teammates, or roommates rather, in professional sports. You just say, hey, this guy plays the same position as I do. We got much more in common than we have different. And they would, they seemed to bring out the best in each other. Piccolo apparently was kind of a more fun-loving, joking guy, whereas Dale was very serious and quiet early on in his career. And he got Gail to loosen up a bit, and they were able to tease each other and joke about each other, and they appreciated each other's personality. So that was genuine. Yeah,
there was a great chemistry. Of the book, I mean, again, the books are incredible. I even like the book They Call Me the Sarge. But one book that really stands out, and I have to go back to 1963 when we talk about the Loyola book, More Than a Shot and a Prayer. In interviews that I've seen you and of course in all the years that I followed you, I love what you said about George Ireland, the coach. Ireland was in the middle of, there was a lot of tensions because of what, he was putting out, the African-American player. And of course, other coaches were, wherever they went, they were basically belittled and everything and all the things that go on. And your thoughts on that team and Ireland and what you knew about him. I mean, he set a precedence here in this, one of the early pioneers of that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. He broke the mold, and sort of the unwritten rule about how many black players a team should put on the court at the same time. As silly as that sounds today. But he put the best players he had out there and he wanted to win, and he did. And not only did he win, he humiliated some of the teams they played against.
Sure.
Tech, teams like that, and he didn't. He took a lot of abuse for doing that, as well as the African American players he put out there.
Sure. No, out of the 12, I hope this is not too crazy of a question. Is there that one book where you're out, or even in, amongst your peers, your friends, your colleagues, Cameron, is there that one book that they say to you, oh my God, that's always talked about? Or what is one? Give me like your top 3 favorites of the 12.
Yeah, boy, I like Miguel Sayers' book.
Yeah.
My Life in Time, it's called. And then the Billy Williams book, I enjoyed as well. I've gotten to know Billy quite well. I see him when I go to the ballpark, and I call him every year on his birthday, and we have a nice conversation. I remember going down to Mobile, Alabama, right after he got inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Talked to his high school coaches and principal and neighbors, that sort of thing. Really got a good feel of his background. So yeah, I enjoyed both of those very well.
Yeah, and of course, when they came out, Fred, at that time, I was one of the five. I had to have them, and just a tremendous some of the work in it. And of course, then that Dick said to Peyton also. Just again, if you sit back, Fred, and look at the things that you have done, it's incredible because your determination, it's about work ethic. This wasn't handed to you. Like you said, you had to be at the ballpark or on a game. You just didn't show up when the ball was tipped, or you didn't show up in the first inning. This takes time. And, like a lot of times we'll turn on a TV and, even now, like sometimes I had learned from an interview I just did with Rob Johnson from Channel 2. I thought Rob got there at 5 minutes to 10. Little did I know he's there at 2:00 in the afternoon in that news studio. I want to tell you, I think we're running out of Hall of Fames for you because you're in 1999, you're inducted into the American Football Semi-Pro Hall of Fame. In, I think it was 1995, of course, you're in the Wittenberg Hall of Fame, and the American Football Kicking Hall of Fame in 2013. But the one that really impresses me, and I see it about you, especially with all these books that I don't have room on my desk here anymore to share with you, but how does that Ring Laudner Award, because that's excellence in sports journalism. And my friend, your column and this, what do these Hall of Fames mean to you?
Well, they mean an awful lot. And, they all take me back to some of the origins of my life and career that we covered to some extent here. And I think about starting out kicking in my backyard and constructing a makeshift goalpost in the vacant lot beyond my backyard. I took 2 bamboo poles that my parents had carpeting wrapped around, and they got new carpeting, stuck those in the ground for the uprights for the goalpost.
Wow.
And then I took my mother's clothesline to use for the crossbar. So, just those types of memories come to mind that, of starting out and how things progressed and opportunities presented themselves to me. And I always say, certain things happen for a reason. You don't realize it at the time or understand what's going on. And then as we get older, we look back and to see why things worked out the way they did.
I have to ask you, are you still right now the adjunct professor at DePaul University?
Yes, I am. Yes.
As we speak. And I think at one time you were at Northwestern, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I taught it.
And again, So here again, I mean, you're deserving of all this. I mean, you're still at it. It's not like you're on the couch, and of course, my beloved White Sox crap game too today.
Yeah.
You're not, you're not watching and saying, okay, you're still. And now, is this going on right now for you, DePaul?
Yes, it is. And in what I think this is my 5th year. And I enjoy it. I teach a class called Sports, Media, and Society. And what we do is examine sports stories that have impact off the field, off the court. So we cover everything from social injustice, sports gambling, racial inequality, gender inequality, so many topics, and obviously the impact of COVID-19 on sports. A lot of areas to cover. And we do that as I tell the students that, you know what, I said 20, 30, 40 years from now, you and I have no idea what media platforms might exist for us any more than I didn't know when I started out Chicago Tribune, that there was going to be an internet, that there was going to be social media, that there were going to be blogs, etc. So what I'm trying to do with the students today is to prepare them to cover what we know at least already, and that's to be able to present a report about one of these topics that I mentioned, and to be able to write about it, talk about it. We almost simulate a sports talk radio format
Okay.
with the students, so that the classmates can interact with them and say what they feel.
Sure.
So these, and I tell them, regardless of what field you end up going into, if you don't go into the journalism professionally, I think these qualities are going to help you to be able to stand up in front of a group and explain your topic and defend your topic and do research, all of these factors. So I'm enjoying it. It's a pretty popular class, and I look forward to it every week.
Fred, are you doing this in class or is it being Zoomed?
We're doing a combination right
Okay.
now. We do, all last year, of course, we had to do it in Zoom, but now kind of maybe once a week we'll do Zoom, and other times we'll do it in person.
Anything with, are you still doing anything with the Chicago Blackhawks?
I'm not. For 3 years, I was their community correspondent, and I would write stories about Blackhawks players doing things off the ice and helping the community, especially on the west side of Chicago. And I'll still occasionally write a freelance piece for them for their website. Yeah.
Fred, and I remember seeing things about you with the Black. What years was this when you were doing this?
This would have been 2017, I think.
Okay.
20, yeah, about 3 years.
So you had seen the just after the Stanley Cup years, after the run that they had in 10, 13, and 15. And of course, we lost my iconic friend this year. And of course, I'm sure you met him, Tony Esposito.
Oh, great guy.
Just so hard to believe that happened. And, I was thinking about you when I saw that you were doing this. I says, I'm sure you had many conversations with Anthony James. Yes. Going back to the classroom that you're doing now with DePaul, do you find this to be really now, probably just listening to you, is it a hot topic? I mean, how they want to see how this is going to happen, how the future is going to present itself?
Yeah, no question. Matter of fact, I was part of a panel discussion last week with other former Chicago Tribune journalists, and we were just talking about the future of the print journalism in particular. We were talking to a group of students, including my class, and getting feedback from them as well. I think we all agree pretty much that there always will be a need for reporters to provide information, and whether as a watchdog, so to speak, or just a provider of reliable information. So the one thing that I found out about most of my students is that when I ask them, what's your day-to-day number one source for information? And most of the time they say Twitter. And that's it. And I said, Twitter is fine. I said, I look at it daily, regularly. But I said, don't make that your only source.
Right.
And to go to some reliable website to confirm what you may see on Twitter. Because anybody could just throw up anything on Twitter and see if it flies and apologize later if they made a mistake. And I gave them, some examples of times where I saw something on Twitter and then I check it out and find out it's not true. And
okay.
So, before you're so quick to retweet something without checking it out, you should have some reliable sources.
Fred, you think I'm correct in saying, isn't it, you wrote so many articles, of course, in the Tribune, to have that feel of, there's Fred Mitchell's article or there's Gleason's article, or this, now to see it like just, on the internet, do you agree with me? It's just not the same feel.
Right. No, definitely not the same feel. And, you and I grew up in an era where, if your name appeared in the paper or a picture or your child or your nephew or niece or somebody got some award, you cut that article out in the paper and put it
right.
in a scrapbook and be proud of that. Oh, this is, that's something that really happened. You don't get that same feeling, I don't think.
No, and to have that memory, you even want to look at it when it's yellow in that scrapbook. You remember the article. I remember the article that Fred Mitchell wrote. Everything is. Yeah. Well, I have to tell you this. I could sit here with you tonight 4 hours because it's my era. Maybe you were that first impression, but I always was hoping to meet you in person. Hopefully we will meet in person. This was when you responded to me when I reached out to you to come on. This is great. There's something I do want to say to you, and this is how I feel about you. I mean, your emphasis on hard work and about how critical it is for aspiring journalists and sports professionals to put out effort and demonstrate patience. They need to develop, strong skills for long-term success. I mean, Fred, you're still doing this, and I don't think you have to do it, but I have to say one thing. If I'm going to end this tonight, I want you to know, I don't think your middle initial, of course, in your name is B. I don't know what that stands for when we have Frederick B. But I have to tell you, after listening to you tonight and looking at these books and your career with football, and I'm sure that if I could talk to Billy Williams and if Gail Sayers were still here, there's one word I would like to describe you and end it with tonight, Fred Mitchell, is you're a very passionate man, and the passion still shows now. And this, for me, is I hope that we can do another Angles and Attitudes with you, because this was fantastic. And my partner, Mark Cezurek, who could not be on here tonight, said, boy, John, you have a true gem coming to Angles and Attitude tonight. Fred, this is incredible, and I hope we can do it again.
I would look forward to it. I appreciate it. I tell people, including my students, that I consider myself a work in progress.
Oh, yes.
And that's the attitude that you have to have, certainly as a journalist, that you want to continue to improve. You don't ever feel like, okay, I've made it, I've done it. I still feel that I have something to offer, to give, and to improve myself. And that's what keeps me going. I was at the Tribune for 41 and a half years. And I still feel that I want to have a reason to get up in the morning, as I say, and do something to help other people, to help the younger generation, and to be the best version of myself, if you will. So I appreciate you having me on. And,
Oh, for sure. And I got to tell you, your wife Kim and your son Cameron, just in seeing him in the inscription of the book, they have to be so proud because I don't think we've seen the last book from Fred Mitchell. I don't. The next thing I'm going to hear, you're going to be at Harvard doing the defunct over there. So Fred, tremendous, and really, in the words of Sammy Davis Jr., from the bottom, I really truly thank you for tonight.
My pleasure, John. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll be in touch, sir. Thanks so much.
All right, take care.
Good night, Fred.